Chat Physical Therapy. I'm Dr. Catherine Price and I'm a physical therapist. Today I'm going to go over some strategies to help with hip mobility and the strength to get up and down off the floor. Before we begin, I'm going to speak a word of life from Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Amen. So getting up and down off the floor is key to keeping longevity and health and mobility and independence. If you fall, you want to be able to get down up off the ground. And then if you've got grandkids, if you're getting older, you want to be able to get on the floor to play. And in general, it's great to be able to get up and off the floor. Some folks like to garden, go outside, get down on the ground. So we want to keep that range of motion and mobility in the hip to be able to do those things. And it gives us a good indication of what our health is in our movement ability. So you be very active and actually not have the strength to do that if you do not continue to keep that range of motion with the strength in the pelvic region. So the sit to rise test will give you an indication of your ability to get on and off the floor. To do that, you'll sit cross-legged and push yourself up and then come right back down in a controlled manner. So you don't want to plop down, you want to come down slowly. Once you can do that, that's an indication that you've got your mobility and strength in your hips to do that. It requires a lumbopelvic rhythm, so it requires your flexibility in your spine, the mobility of the hip, and also flexibility in the hamstring, which is going to help with that spine mobility. So I'm going to just go over some things to be doing to help gain that range of motion and strength. One of the things you can do is sit up against the wall, and you can keep your back flat up against the wall with the legs out straight. If you've got really tight hamstrings, the knees tend to stay bent, and you want to work on either getting the hamstrings lengthened and then being able to straighten your legs all the way out, holding this position for up to 5 minutes. Then you can take one knee, bring it up to your chest, so you're working on that hip be coming into a flex position and getting that range there so that you're getting the, it's going to be an anterior roll, posterior glide in the hips, so it's going to keep the mechanics in the hip joint moving, and then switching legs, holding the other knee up, holding this position for about 2 minutes just to maintain that hip range of motion. Now that's going to be hip flexion. Then we want to work on hip extension. One of the exercises that I like to do is a half kneel position with a forward lean to get that leg extended behind. A lot of times we don't get our leg behind us during the day, and so our hip flexion and our can become tight, and we lose that ability to extend the leg behind, and then that also affects the movement in the low back. So this is a way that you can do that. If you cannot get down on the floor, you can use a couch, and you can place a chair right in front of your couch, and then take your leg, extend it behind you, and try to work on just getting that hip behind your body, holding it there for up to 2 minutes, getting used to just having that leg behind you. That's one way to get extension. So those are a few things that you can be working on. With the spine, you want to have a good lumbopelvic rhythm. So if my spine is flexed or rounded, then my hips are going to tilt backwards. And that is going to be your lumbopelvic rhythm. And then if I'm going to arch my back, which is an extension in the spine, then my pelvis is going to tilt forward. And some folks have a difficulty with their lumbopelvic rhythm, either because of restriction in hamstrings, which are pulling on the pelvis, or even in the back. So we've got to have healthy hips movement as well as back movement to get that rhythm. And that rhythm is key to getting up and down and allowing that freedom and flexibility. So one way you can work on that is going to be a cat-cow or cats and dogs, where you're rounding your spine and then dropping your back, and rounding your spine and dropping your back. You can do this also in sitting. So if I'm going to sit up tall, I can arch my back, and then I can round my back. and just work on, if I'm picturing a clock, going 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and just getting that movement, lumbopelvic rhythm. Then we want to get into the rotation of the hips. So a lot of folks will lose their hip mobility too if not intentionally doing activities that are going to keep the hip mobile. And so one thing you can do is sit in a chair and lean forward just to get that rotation in the hip, and just holding that for a stretch. Then if you want to work on the combined strength with the range of motion, I like to go into a squat. And so if it's difficult to hold a squat with your legs, you can place your hands to support. So you're getting a little bit of strength with the range of motion. And then as you can, you just want to work lower and lower and lower. And then just working my way down. And then holding this position and staying here just to work on maintaining that strength with that position. And I will slowly move back and forth. I like slow movement with different hip positioning so that it allows you to keep the flexibility in the connective tissue and the movement in the joint. And so you'll see here what I've got to have good ankle mobility in order to also go into this position. And there's other ways you can do, other interventions and strategies you can do to get mobility, but just going through and holding positions so that you can maintain that. So going into a squatted position, a deep squat, and just holding it. So I'm going to go all the way as low as I can and just stay in this position and holding that. And that's going to allow me to get both a little bit of rotation, but some hip flexion, and using my body weight just to maintain that flexibility there. So then too, you can work on the strength by going all the way down and then pushing your body up, keeping that strength. So if you're going to the floor and you're in that half kneel, you can also work on your strength by pushing up with your legs. If you need to hold on with both hands, you can grab the edge of the couch and a chair, lower yourself down. You can even use 2 chairs. Use as much of your upper body that you need to push back up and lower back down. Just working on the hip movement with your strength to be able to push back up and down off the floor after you've gotten that hip extension. And so doing lunges can be beneficial in this for this task. So you worked on hip flexion, rotation, you're getting the hamstrings, the lumbopelvic rhythm, and putting it all together. Then you can work on the strength to push with the rotators. So one of the exercises that I do commonly to keep my core and my ability to get up and down off the floor is going to be a half W position to a tall half W. So I'm just coming up to a tall kneel. So I will control coming down and push with my hips to come back up. I cannot use a weight and just go right back and forth. I like the weight because it's going to counterbalance, and I'm just going to push up and come right back down and work on this strength in that range. And that helps me use my rotators to control that lowering and rising. So it's going to challenge the rotators with body weight. And then I'll switch to the other side, and I'll use my rotators to push myself up, come right back down. Now, you want to go into that half W position and just hold it just to get the mobility in the hips this way. So holding this for 2 minutes and switching to the other side, holding for 2 minutes. Once you have the mobility, then you can add the strength component, rising and coming back down. Then an exercise that I do commonly is going to be going from lying flat on my back, using the weight, using my core to come up, going into a half W position, and then rising all the way up, and then lowering myself back down. Legs go out straight. There's the hamstring flexibility, and then coming down. So rolling up, going into the half W, pushing up to a tall kneel, and then half kneel, and rising, and coming right back down. So that's a series of exercise that I will do to help me maintain my hip mobility and strength to be able to get up and down freely and to keep the strength so that when I go from a crisscross position. I can push up and then slowly control that coming back down. So working on the spine mobility, the flexibility, and the strength is going to be key to being able to get up and down off the floor. And it's well worth spending the time to keep your range of motion strength and mobility so that you can enjoy going out and getting down in the dirt and digging in the garden or playing with your grandkids, or just being able to enjoy different movements that aren't restricted so that you have the strength. And also, if you happen to fall, you want to be able to get up off the floor and do it easily. So these are just tips and strategies to help with that sit to rise and getting up. There's other ways you can work on mobility. A great book is Built to Move by Kelly and Juliet Starrett, and that will give you more insight on mobilization exercises and things to incorporate to help you with your mobility and health. So I hope this is of help.